Crafters, DM Scotty here, good to have you with me. On today's episode I was working on a terrain hazard, and in 4E it's called Gorgon Mud. And basically what Gorgon Mud is it's a magical mud that will envelop any creature that falls into it and harden into a stone-like texture and entomb whatever it entraps within it. So it can be a fairly deadly hazard. And I was recently running a game where I needed some of this. And so I've come up with a interesting way to make models that the players can actually fit inside, and it looks like the mud is coming up and enveloping the player. So really neat looking model. So let's go to the table, and it was pretty easy to make. And let's go to the table and I'll show you how I did that. To start my Gorgon Mud project, I wanted to use a base for the model, and I'm going to use these woodsies, which are it's just a wood disc, and I want to make it big enough that I can incorporate a figure into it, even with the mud coming up around it. So what I did is I got this base, and here's a regular 1-inch figure, and he fits nicely on the base, and there's still some room left there, so should be plenty of room for my Gorgon Mud. Now the problem with these wood discs is I found that when you put wet, I'm going to use the toilet paper method, when you put wet toilet paper on here, it will warp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some water, and then I'm going to just put it in the water. And so this way it'll saturate with water and it won't warp during the project process. So I'll let that sit for a minute or two. I've taken out my water and it's thoroughly saturated now, so it should be good to go. So what I'm going to use is the toilet paper method, and I'll grab my toilet paper. So here we go. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a couple sheets. Okay? So I've taken the sheets off and I'm going to kind of put them like that. And then I will wet the toilet paper. I'm not going to put any glue on it yet. I'll just wet it. And then wring it out. You don't want it too wet. Alright. So now I get the process of unfolding this without tearing it up. So the thicker toilet paper can be nice for this type of thing. The real thin toilet paper can just shred apart. So I would get a thicker type toilet paper if you're going to do this kind of thing. Okay. So now I've got my disc and my toilet paper is all wet. So I'm going to put some glue on this, and this will be the back side or the bottom of the project. And then I'll just take the glue and I'll just start adding it to the TP. And this is a great alternative for just putting glue in the water. I find it saves glue and it works just as well. Okay, so there we go. I got plenty of glue on there. So now what I'm going to do is take these sheets, and I'm going to turn this over, and then I'm going to drape it. And then, you can play with it as much as you want. You can make some come together, just pinch it together. You want to make sure you leave room for the person to fit underneath. You can pinch it over and that kind of thing. And then when you get satisfied with it, what you can do is take a craft glue. You can take your acrylic paint and just put it on top of that, and then it can sit there and dry till you're ready for the next step. So you can also kind of do it around like this. It gives you kind of a form. And when it starts to dry, you can take it off before it actually glues itself to this bottle here. So there you go. Yeah, just play with it. All right, so we'll let that. Generally, what I would do is do more than one. So I would do more than one. I did 4 for my game. So we'll let that dry, and then we'll come back and do the next step. So here our glue is dried up nicely. It looks great. You can see that wood piece in there. Now I do want to add a little more strength and detail to it, so I'm going to use my glue gun, and I'm just going to start with the center, and I'll just start adding some detail in there, kind of doing like swirls, and then you can connect it on the bottom there to the edge. So it can be a little tricky to reach in there, but all right. So there's what we got so far. So now I'm just going to start adding glue to the outside, and this will give it strength as well as texture. And so I'll just start dragging that glue gun back and forth. You can fill in some of the gaps in the toilet paper with the glue, so that's nice. Also, another thing you want to do is take the glue on the edge and kind of round out the edge so it's not a sharp edge. And then I can just pull that into the other glue, and it blends right in. All right, so now I'll work my way around. I'll also do some of the inside, and then we'll come back and go to the next step. Here I've applied all the glue, and you can see there some of the detail. And it's made it very sturdy, a very sturdy structure for the game table. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to base paint it black like I do most of my stuff, and then we'll paint it up. You can see here I made a lot of cool different shapes, so let me give you a little close up there so you can see the different, really came out neat. You can also use these for tree stumps. I thought about that while I was painting these. They would make some great tree stumps, but I really think they'll be perfect for the Gorgon mud. Now, you may have seen a few white specks on there, you know, with the spray paint. You don't want to keep hitting it until you get every black spot, you know, every spot black. This has a lot of crevices in it. It's really hard to do. You're just going to gum on the paint. So what I like to do is just, once I have it flat black, I like to give it another base coat. So I'm going to start with the dark brown. So I'm using burnt umber. So I'll grab my one here, and just going to grab a big brush and just start fairly watered down and just start applying that on there. And you're not going to see much of a difference here because it's dark brown, and I'm starting out with black. So I'll just finish painting this on. We'll let it dry up, and then we'll add our lighter colors. Alright, to highlight this bad boy, I'm just going to use a light spice brown, and I'm going to use a little bit of green. I'm going to use a celery color. I don't know, the Gorgon thing just makes me think of a little bit of green, so I think I'll add that to it also. So I'm just going to use this brush, this large brush here, and I'll just grab my spice brown and just start applying it like that. So just getting some of that detail to pop out. That's the whole goal of this. Make sure you do the inside. And I'm just going to use the same brush. I'm not even going to wait to do this part. I'm going to grab a little bit of this Gorgon, or I'm sorry, that celery, and I'll just kind of hit some of the edges maybe with it. Get a little bit in there. All right, so we'll let this dry, and we'll come back and talk about the next step. So what I've done now is I've put a nice coat of gloss on the Gorgon mud, and you can see that it's very glossy. Looks great. Now you can paint that on with the water-based gloss, but sometimes it can be pretty messy. So what I'll do is I'll use this double coat spray gloss sometimes, and it can be easier for objects that are separate from the tile, because if you start to put the water-based gloss on it with paint by hand, it can kind of drip and everything. So this makes it a little easier if you want to do it that way. This is just an option if you want to make stuff look really glossy without the mess. So I wanted to show you that. And now let's go to the tile and I'll show you how they look. So here I have part of a tile going. You can see I have these bubbling mud pools on the tile. Now, if you watch my latest play vid, you'll see this on there. But and I did use this Gorgon mud in there. So basically, what would happen is, if a player is on the side and ends up getting knocked into the Gorgon mud, the mud actually attacks. And I thought it'd be really neat to have like a physical representation on the table. So basically, you would take your figure up, put the Gorgon mud down, and put your guy inside the Gorgon mud if they didn't get away. And then, you know, as it progressively gets worse, you know, hopefully they won't get entombed, which is what the Gorgon mud does. But I thought those looked really great. Give you a close look there. Make sure that the figure fits inside and everything. So you want to make it big enough that you can fit the standard medium-sized figure in the Gorgon mud. So here's a couple of my other ones I'll show you that are finished. And those look really cool. I think those really came out great. So my last one. All right. And that's it. And I hope you enjoyed this episode about Gorgon mud. And we'll see you next time on The Craft. Hey crafters, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the DM's Craft. Make sure to subscribe, and I have tons of other videos, as you can see. I am the originator of the 2.5D method of crafting tiles. I also do dirt cheap terrain for the table. If all this intrigues you, make sure you check out all the videos below. Also, join my forum. We have lots of great crafters on there who give advice. I have a link above and below. And last but not least, remember, go forth and craft!